Welcome, everybody, to the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation's Live Better series. I'm Rob Girth. I'm the Director of Digital Media here at the Reeve Foundation. And today's show is Dr. Dan on beating stress. Now, Dan is really looking for this to be a conversation. So to achieve that, we need to go over some technical details. So let me turn it over to our operator, Chris, for that information. Chris.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to dial in...
Hey, Don.
Line, you may dial in at 1-800...
I need a couple items.
1309. Again, if you'd like to dial in, that number is 1-800-931-1309. Just keep in mind that your line will be unmuted, so if you have a mute button on your phone, please use that so as not to cause interference into the presentation.
The pills in the bag and the... Plug this in.
And we have somebody's unmuted right now. You can also hit 6-3 on your keypad to mute and 6-6 to unmute. So while we're leaving everybody unmuted so we can have a conversation, but while you're not talking, you don't want to say anything, make sure you mute yourself by hitting 6-3. Got somebody there that needs to hit 6-3, and then we're in business. So let's get started. Let me introduce the man of the next hour, Dr. Daniel Gottlieb. How's it going, Dan? Is it good week?
It's yeah, actually, it's a very good week. Weather's gorgeous here in the Philadelphia area, so who can complain?
Well, we have to have something to complain about if we're talking about beating stress this week. So
well,
I'm stressed out, if that helps at all.
Well, we'll take care of you in a minute, Garth.
Oh, good. Go ahead.
But listen, I want to disabuse you of the idea that we're going to beat stress. You're not going to beat stress any more than you're going to beat your annoying uncle who visits and stays too long. So here's what we're going to do with stress. We're going to do the same thing with stress that we do with your annoying uncle. We're going to find a way to live the lives we have rather than the lives we want or the lives we think we deserve. So, after all, what is stress anyway? Is it a thought or a series of thoughts? Is it an emotion? Is it visceral? What is this thing that we all complain about? What is it, and how does it get to us? How do we become stressed? Well, here's the deal. One of the things that causes stress is our reaction to a stimulus, right? So somebody says, you're an idiot, and our limbic system jumps up and goes into high gear, and we either fight with them, scream back, or we flee because we think we're at risk. Well, that's what the limbic system does. That's how we have survived all these centuries, because our limbic system alerts us to fight or flight. But here's what happens over time. Our limbic system gets so stimulated now, so often, that it takes less and less to trigger this stress response. So, road rage. Now that's somebody whose limbic system is easily stimulated, right? So somebody cuts me off on the road, and I react as though it's a mastodon or an assault on us. When in reality, all this means is that I'm going to be home 30 seconds later. All it means is that the person driving is under some kind of stress. So it goes with our lives. Even when my catheter leaks, I used to react with this overwhelming shame that this is terrible, how am I going to live with this? When in reality, this simply happens. There's no great story about it. Same with my physical pain, the same thing. So mindfulness is simply experiencing your life as it is with no stories around it. What it means, what it ought to be, what it should be. So mindfulness does not change your life. And everybody who has a life knows this already. I see some of my people on the line who are caregivers, and they have, all caregivers, have a very, very difficult life. Mindfulness doesn't change the externals. It might not change what you have to do or even when you have to do it. But if we can train our brains to understand that this moment is a moment in our lives without a storyline, that this moment is a moment, that's all it is. That's all we know, is that this moment is a moment. We don't know if it'll come back. We don't know what it means. We can tell our stories about it means that my life is ruined, or this is it for the rest of my life, or whatever. But if we can calm down that limbic system and retrain our brains, then we will know that when we face adversity, it's simply that. It's adversity. It might be difficult, it might be painful, but it is simply that. So it's not going to eliminate pain in your life, physical or emotional. But it might diminish what we do with pain, which is we wrap our arms around it, we hold it tight, and we start telling stories about it. What mindfulness can do is help you to simply experience the pain. When you feel anxious, simply experience it. It's an unpleasant feeling. But if you simply experience it without wrapping your arms around it or telling a lot of stories about it, trust me, I know from experience, it passes faster. So, okay, that's my mindfulness sermon, mantra, whatever you want to call it.
And then we will have beaten stress, right?
I'm going to beat you.
What can I say? I spent 3 years at Men's Health writing headlines. So,
Really?
yes, we're always looking.
All right, so you're the first guinea pig, Girth.
Oh, okay.
You said that you had stress. So how do you know you have stress?
Usually my head starts to spin to, it's usually, I'll be very specific about having 100 things to do and they all need to be done at once.
Okay.
And so my head starts to spin and I jump from subject to subject.
All right. So your head is probably fairly stationary. Your mind is racing.
Right.
Okay. And it can't sit still.
Right. And it can't focus on what I'm supposed to focus on.
Right, of course. And I'm sure you have a bodily reaction too. Are you aware of what it is?
Everything's a little tighter.
Okay.
All the muscles.
Your chest, your neck, I imagine, your gut.
Yes. There's a knot, a special knot I can get in my shoulders. Yes. It's always in the same spot.
And
During the.
I imagine there's a storyline you have there. You already mentioned part of it, right? That everything has to get done?
Yes. And it's going to be impossible.
So that's your storyline.
Yes.
And it begins to feel urgent, like an emergency.
Yes, and overwhelming.
Okay. This is a fairly typical stress reaction, right? So your body's telling you, first of all, your brain is telling a storyline. You have a lot to do, that's the fact. Right? And then your brain comes in and starts telling you that you'll never get it done, it all must get done. All of this translates then to bodily emotions, and you tighten up, which means as the cortisol courses through your veins now, the stress reaction courses through your brains, your blood at that moment is going more towards your extremities because it's going to be flight or fight. And your blood goes away from your central part of your body and your brain, which is what you really need right now. So you're not able to concentrate. And I will guess then your anxiety goes even higher.
Yes,
and the
of
stress
course.
reaction even higher. And then you concentrate less. How am I doing?
It sounds like you're inside my head.
Okay. Well, actually, sadly, I'm inside my head, too. Right, so that's what happens. All right. So now let's come back here. And here's how we're going to start this thing called meditation. We start with breath for a reason. That Hebrew, Greek, and Latin all use words for breath that are identical, if not similar, as the words we use for soul, for spirit. I tell people who read the Bible, what's the last thing God did before, he kicked back and took his day off? Well, he gave Adam breath. It's divine inspiration. You with me so far?
Yes.
All right. And as we exhale, as we expire, we're actually nurturing the fauna in this world, the trees, everything green, with our carbon dioxide. When we inhale, it's a divine inspiration, and we're taking in oxygen from the world around us, from the trees. There's a lot that goes on with this breath thing. So I invite you, and Lorian sent in a comment. She said, I'm actually clutching my arms as we visualize stress incidents. So, Rob, I invite you, Lori, you can keep clutching your arms if you like, whatever is more comfortable, and everybody else. Just take a minute, well, less than a minute, and just muster all of your attention to the next 3 in-breaths. Let all of your attention, you become that breath, and just feel it. Feel where you feel it best. Your nostrils, your chest, your gut. 3 breaths. Just try it. Okay. So, Rob, I'm going to ask you, and Lorian, I'm going to ask you. What was that like? Rob?
Well, for me, it was, I could feel what I can only describe as like a stretching feeling in the center of my chest, like a good stretch when you're stretching your arms or stretching out. That's kind of how it felt.
Oh, opening. Something opening?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Where it was tight, it was opening. Right?
Yes.
But really, what changed? Nothing changed. Look, Lorian just wrote in that her arms uncramped. And nothing changed. You know, what you had to do didn't change. And 30, 40 seconds ago, that was causing you stress. Now you don't feel stress. So, stress is a habitual reaction to a stimulus. You with me, Rob?
The way I see it, I just beat stress, so I'm good. No, yeah, I totally get it. That's great.
And after we finish this conversation, your stress is going to say to you, I'm back.
Then I'm staying on the line then.
Yeah, exactly. I would like to, is anybody else on the line want to join the conversation?
Yeah, I think we have Margaret and Jim and Dana at least on the line at this point. Any of you guys just unmute by hitting 6-6 and go ahead and speak up. We'll organize you once you start speaking. There we go.
Oh?
Hello.
Who's this?
Who's that?
This is Jim.
Hey, Jim.
Jim, just turn down the sound on your computer. I think that's where we're getting the feedback. Just turn down your sound on your computer and we'll be in good shape.
How about now? Is that better?
Yeah, it's good.
That's fine with me.
All I'm going to say is my stress is repetitive, day in, day out, same problem continuously.
Well, let me push you a little bit here, Jim, okay? Okay if we try to unpack that a little bit?
Sure.
Okay. So you've got the same thing every day, and that triggers stress in you. Every day, and that triggers stress in you. Hearing some feedback here, Jim.
I've had trouble hearing you there.
Yeah, I'm getting some feedback. I'm hearing an echo in my voice. Are you on a landline?
I am.
Yeah, I wonder if our host could give us a hand here, if there's anything that can be done. Rob, you have any ideas?
Could try to,
Pardon the interruption. This is Chris, the operator. What I'll do is I'll mute the other lines in the meantime, one of the other lines that are causing interference as well.
Okay. I don't know if you were able to hear that, Jim, were you?
not very well, no.
Okay. Can you hear me any better now?
I hear you fine now.
Okay. So I'll ask my question again. I don't know if you heard me. Did you?
No. Let's ask me one more time.
All right. So here's what I'm hearing. You're okay if we unpack this thing a little bit? What you just said.
Sure.
Okay. So let's take a look. So you've got the same thing every day, and that triggers a stress reaction.
Yes. It's something that I guess all parents have to deal with, but I want it to get better, not be something I have to deal with continuously.
Oh, you mean your kids? Something about your kids?
Correct.
Okay. Well, I just want you to know I saw a bumper sticker once that said mental illness is inherited. You get it from your kids.
Right. I wasn't, it did the same thing to my father, I assume.
All right, so I want to hear what's happening, and I want to hear the nature of your stress reaction. Because if it's happening every day, then you must be having the same reaction to it every day.
Yes.
All right, do you mind saying what's happening?
My son wishes death upon me and laughs at the fact that I am in a wheelchair.
Ouch. Ouch. So, tell me about
Michael.
the stress reaction. Tell me about what happens to you when he says that.
I tell him to, he's just 19 almost. I tell him I wish him not to live in my house.
All right. So, that's what you do. But I want to know what happens to you when he says that. What happens to your body, your mind?
I raise my voice as loud as he raises his voice, and I take away every privilege I can think of that he enjoys to make his life as miserable as possible here so that he can leave and I don't have to listen to his ramblings.
All right. Here's one of the things that's happening. Stick with me here for a minute, okay, Jim? So one of the things that goes on is when you have this stress reaction, you are being reactive, right? So everything inside your body is getting triggered, and the rational brain is nowhere to be found. You're just reacting. You're protecting yourself. You're expressing your anger. You want to get them out however you can, and you hear it, it's a crisis. Your body, brain. You hear it?
Yes, I want the problem to go away, yes.
All right, but of course you do. We all want our problems to go away, but in that moment, when you're screaming at him and desperately trying to figure out a way to end this thing, your body is in crisis. It feels like an emergency, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Of course it does. So, but you said it happens every day. So it's really not an emergency, right? It just feels like
it's an emergency to him depending on whether he needs his iPhone replaced or some item he needs or something he needs from me and is not going to get it. Then he needs to, go on.
All right. So we can talk about this relationship later, but for right now, Jim, all I care about is you.
I got you.
And your stress reaction and this damn cortisol that's going through your veins all the time that's just not healthy. I mean, it suppresses your immune system. Ain't good for you, my friend. So let's see what can be done about this. So, makes these obnoxious statements, and your body reacts as though it's an emergency.
Lots of things too.
So, okay, I'm hearing.
That's my son trying to tell, not the worst of my sons, but my youngest son typing into the conversation.
Oh, good.
Same thing.
What's his name?
Trevor.
Hey, Trevor.
He does the same thing. Listen.
All right. So, you with me so far, Jim?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So you have this reaction as though it's an emergency. Could you imagine one day, picture this in your mind, where your 19-year-old son says these things to you, and you just don't react. Your body doesn't react. Just hear these words and watch him speaking those words, and nothing happens. Picture that.
Yes. I can play that game.
No, I'm not talking about playing a game. I'm talking about actually, you'll excuse the expression, one spinal cord injury to the other. I'm not talking about acting it. I'm talking about walking the walk or wheeling the walk or whatever the hell we say to each other. I'm talking about actually experiencing calm when he says that.
I got you.
Yeah, now you're not going to be able to do it tomorrow or when he does it later today. But if you can do something as simple as what I did with Rob, that just when you hear it, just be aware of what you're feeling. Track those 3 breaths. Were you able to do it when I did the exercise with Rob and Lorian?
Yes. The only issue I have with that, Dan, is how do I get him punished for saying these items?
Well, that's a whole different issue. Now you're talking about parenting a wayward 19-year-old. And I think that's more complicated and will probably be less productive than getting your cortisol down. I mean, I really don't want to minimize the, this horrible thing you're dealing with every day. But he sounds out of control, frankly. And as I listen to you, when he gets out of control, you get out of control. Yes?
Yeah, the main thing is I have to make him understand what he normally gets, he's no longer getting. I said, fine, you leave or you take your friends. Actually, it has to come down to his friend leaving because he simply will just ignore me.
Do you guys ever have a civil conversation without all this rage between you guys?
No, because he simply believes that I am not a parental figure. He feels that he is an equal to me, and he can do as he pleases.
Well, you guys are in a terrible power struggle here. How long have you been in a chair?
2.5 years.
Ah, so he was a late adolescent when you were in a chair. Where's his mother?
Sitting here next to me.
Oh. And what role does she play when he gets out of control?
The mediator, I guess.
Yeah. I bet she's pretty frustrated too.
She's the giver and I'm the taker.
Yeah. So where do you live?
San Jose. San Jose, California.
Okay. I've heard of it. So I'm going to suggest something, and I don't know how you'll feel about it. Is your wife listening to me too?
Yes.
All right. I really think it's important for all of you to be in family therapy. There's a lot of issues here. First of all, you and Jim are 2.5 years post-injury, and that's like the blink of an eye. You're still dealing with emotional and physical ripple effects of this, and most men I know, myself included, who first wind up in a wheelchair feel less than, impotent, and less valuable as a man. So you've got those issues going on. And then you've got, a 19-year-old with all this testosterone trying to prove who he is. And God knows what he was like before the injury or what your relationship was like with him, Jim, before the injury. So I strongly suggest you guys get into family therapy. And if you can't find one out there, email me. I'm at Dr. Dan Gottlieb at AOL.com, and I'll help you find someone else. Okay, I want to get back to this this meditation business that everybody's talking about. So I want to thank you for calling in, Jim, and please,
okay, Dan. Thank you.
Please remember those 3 breaths. Take care.
Goodbye.
Bye. So before we go back to the phones, Rob, you there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure you didn't drift off to sleep.
No, I was riveted, actually, so.
So we've got Roxanne, who's typing in some questions here. And if you guys give me a sec, I'm going to read them. She says, she put something in writing. I don't know if she's on the phone or not.
No, she's not on the phone.
All right. Just type in whether you can hear me, Roxanne.
Oh, yeah, she can. She's plugged in. She just isn't on the phone, so she's listening on her computer.
Okay.
There she is. Yes, she says yes.
Okay. Now, I'm going to read your question. Boy, this is a fun situation. So she's listening in, but she can't say anything. So I can say anything I want about her, basically. All right, Roxanne, don't worry. I'll be gentle. So she says, I'm interested in learning how to control the reactive impulses, not to have that cortisol rush that Dan's describing. How to learn to meditate. All right, Rob, first I want you to type something in.
Sure.
There's a program called M as in Michael, B as in Bravo, SR for mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR. You can look that up on your webpage. There are a lot of people and programs all around that are certified to teach this. There's also a lot of online programs, and I strongly recommend a book by Zindel Siegel, who's one of the authors, Zindel Siegel from Canada, and it's the mindfulness way towards anxiety and depression. Mindfulness for anxiety and depression. It's an excellent book, and it has CDs with it. There's also plenty of programs online. So that said, I don't want to just turf you off, Rox. So here's what I suggest to begin with. Now, like I said, mindfulness is simply being awake to your experience. And, you know, like I said to Jim, I said, I know all the crap going on in your life, but all I care about right now at this moment is you. And I'd like you to adopt that stand towards yourself. You, Roxanne, and everybody else. Take that stand so that when you are stimulated or triggered, please ask yourself this question. What's happening to me right now? What's going on in my body, mind? You know, it's like Rob, his mind was racing and his body was tense. And at that moment, Roxanne and Rob, at that moment, you are suffering. And at that moment, that's all I care about, that you are suffering. What do any of us need when we're suffering? It's not about the externals. When we're suffering, we need kindness and understanding and compassion. That's what we need. I want somebody to hold me, literally or metaphorically, when I'm suffering. So when you're suffering, I want you to do that. Rob, you too. When you're having a stress reaction, what I want you to be able to do, ideally, is to wake up that moment. Wake up. Become aware that you're suffering at that moment. And do for yourself what you would do for anyone you love. Just sit with them. Offer them kindness. This whole thing can take 15 seconds or less, and it really changes everything. So now the question is, how do we get to that point? And the only way to get to that point is to wake up in the first place. You know, a Buddhist teacher once said, every time you walk through a door, wake up. Simply become aware that you're in a new space with new emotions and new visuals and new sounds. Every time you walk through a door, everything changes. Most of us don't notice. That's what waking up is. When you sit on a cushion or when you do a formal practice of meditation, you're not calming your brain, although that might be a byproduct. You're not silencing your thoughts. You know, only an anesthesiologist can do that. I don't even think that works. All you're doing is experiencing your environment. You experience your breath, the inhalation and the exhalation. And then you can experience your mind wandering, and it surely will. Within 5 seconds, it'll start to wander. And when it does, gently bring it back. Gently bring your attention back to your breathing. And you're going to have an emotion, and that emotion's going to trigger a story. But instead of following that storyline, come back gently to your emotions, to your breathing. Just come back to what's happening right now. John Kabat-Zinn wrote a book called Coming to Your Senses. Literally. So experience your body, your sense of touch, your internal body, your feelings, your breathing. Notice what your tongue feels like inside your mouth. Notice scents in the room. Notice sounds. Be passive when you hear sounds. Just allow your ears to be a receptacle for the sounds going on around you, and do it without judgment or without stories. You know, oh, that's X, that must mean. And that'll happen too. That'll happen too. And when it does, you gently bring your mind back. See, what this does, and we talked about retraining your brain. But if you can do this start with 20 minutes a day. If you can do just this for 20 minutes a day and gently bring your mind back, your attention back to your experience moment by moment, every time you bring your attention back to what you're experiencing right now, you're retraining your brain. You're laying down new neural pathways, and your brain is beginning to learn that your thoughts are not necessarily true and accurate. That your thoughts are simply what your brain is doing right now. And you can leave it and come back. That's the same thing with your emotions. We don't even know what emotions are. So you can have a really big one, but if you're committed to sitting on that cushion or practicing for 20 minutes a day, you're going to sit there for 20 minutes. And you can have a big emotion. You can feel it fully. It can trigger storylines. But if you let that go and come back to your present moment, your breath, your brain begins to learn that it's not a crisis. And everything that felt like a crisis really is not a crisis. I don't know if that's clear, Roxanne. I hope that was clear. Rob, what's your take on that?
Yeah, it's clear. Is there that 20 minutes seems daunting. Is there a place I'm supposed to be, or?
Yeah, place where it's quiet, where there's no demands on you, where you can tell yourself. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to accomplish anything or be somewhere. This is your 20 minutes. This is your massage for your brain. And you're right. You're absolutely right, Rob. This does not necessarily feel good every time you do it, because you're going to feel the emotions you usually run away from. You're going to feel them, and it's not going to feel good. But your brain is going to learn. Every time you come back to your breath, your brain is going to learn. Even big emotions are not a crisis. I know now, I practice for 30 to 40 minutes every day. And there are some days that I am crazed after just a few minutes. I have so much to do. And with my memory, I'm scared I'm going to forget it. I put my to-do list in my head and then try to put it away, and I know I'm going to forget, and I got to get out of here. But I know now, after all these years of practicing, that all of these emotions and all of these ruminations, they're all going to be different in a few minutes. It's going to feel different. Not that it'll go away, it might come back, but it's going to feel different. I'm aware that every emotion I feel and every thought I have doesn't last long, and that they're just emotions and thoughts. Even when I feel crazy like that, it doesn't last. It doesn't last. Just like our lives doesn't last. So, let me see.
You want to see if we can get to one more call? This hour is going faster than any hour we've done yet.
So I want to quickly, I got a chat from my buddy here, Trish. He says, can really everyone achieve this meditation? It seems sort of like hypnosis. Not everyone can get there. I don't even have the book, and I still can't begin to get this. Don't worry. I'm sure it's just me and my mind.
And she says she even has the book.
Yes, she even has it. So I'm sure it's just me and my mind. And so what else could it be? That's what stress is. It's just me and my mind. That's what depression is. That's what everything is. It's just me and my mind. Sure, everyone can do it. Not everybody can be enlightened. I think nobody can be enlightened. And not everyone can sit on a cushion or practice this for 20, 30, 40 minutes a day. No, not everyone can do that. But I believe everyone can be more awake to their lives without judgment. Trish, I just finished writing a book that's going to come out in the spring, and the title is "The Wisdom We're Born With: Rediscovering the Joy of Living." So, you've got a couple of kids, Trish, and you watch your kids when they're little, and they're practicing mindfulness meditation. They're experiencing each moment of every day. They feel great love, fearless love. They experience joy and they experience awe, A-W-E. They all do. So where does all this go? Why can they feel it so easily and we can't? Well, I believe in the deepest recesses of my heart and mind and tracking the data. It's all in there. We still have it. It's just a question of accessing it. So when you go home and you open the door and the nurse didn't do something or did something wrong and you are suffering at that moment, all I ask of you, is just to be awake to the fact that you're suffering. Hold yourself, literally hold yourself, and ask the question, what is this thing called suffering now? And what is it that I need? You can do that. You can do that much. It's like when I gave a talk to doctors. They said they didn't have time to do all this fancy stuff. And I said, okay, that's fine. I said, all I ask is, I'm your patient in the hospital. When you put your hand on the doorknob or the handle in my hospital door, just feel the temperature of it. That takes less than a second. Just feel the temperature. And all I'm asking them to do is wake up. Just experience your lives, just for this moment. So, no, you don't have to practice a half hour a day. But you do have to wake up best you can. Best you can. All right. I don't know if we have time for another call. Let's try to squeeze one in, Rob, okay?
Sure. Chris, who do you have there?
I will open up the lines and we'll see who's available.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Go ahead, speak up. Someone speak up. We'll see who we get.
Go ahead, speak up. Someone speak up.
Okay, this is Lorianne.
Hey, Lorianne. Chris, let's mute everybody else then, except for Lorianne.
Perfect.
Okay, I was wanted to ask Dr. Dan about the fact that I'm in constant pain, and it seems that what helps me with the pain is when I'm doing something, and when I sit still, not only does the pain start filling up my mind, but the longer I sit still, the more the pain intensifies.
Right. Right. It's because your brain has nothing to do at that moment but look
Right.
at the pain and tell stories. My dad used to tell I tell a story about my dad as he was aging. And, you know, he was about 5 years from death. He used to say, I'm ready to leave this vale of tears. And one day I sat him down and I said, Dad, are you really ready to die? So he said, yes, some days I am. I said, tell me about those days. He says, well, you know, I buried my wife and I buried my daughter. My sister had died 5 years earlier, my only sibling. And then my son lives every day in a wheelchair. He says, those days I'm ready to die. I said, Dad, those things are true every day. But tell me about the days you're not ready to die. He says, oh, I'm not thinking about those things. I'm thinking about lunch. So pain is pain. You know, pain lights up in the same area of the brain, whether it's physical or emotional or social. Pain is pain. And what you're telling me is that as long as you can do something and feel productive, then your brain is happy. But when you stop, you focus on whatever stimuli you have, and that's your pain. So this is the beauty of mindfulness. Because even when you can't run around, when you're feeling pain in your body, there's a lot of stuff going on besides the pain. There's the temperature in the room. There's the sensation in all other parts of your body. There's the taste in your mouth. There's the odors going on there. And there is your breath that changes with every inhalation. There's sounds, ambient sounds, that need to be attended to. If you're near a window and there's trees, how many shades of color are out there on those trees? There's a lot going on in our lives, moment by moment. And what we attend to is where our mood goes. there's a story about an Indian chief who was sitting with his grandson. We're going to have to end after this comment. Sitting with his grandson, and the Indian chief says, I've got 2 wolves inside my head. One of them has teeth and says, you're not good enough to be the chief. You're not smart enough, and I'm going to eat you alive. And he says, and then there's another wolf saying, you're a good man, that you're kind and you're strong and people respect you. And the grandson said, which wolf wins? And the chief said, whichever wolf I feed. That's what mindfulness is. It's being aware of which wolf you feed. So that's it. I think we're going to have to talk about this next week too, Rob.
Yeah, next month. I was going to say that. I think we should continue, and it probably isn't, it's just me talking here. So we're talking November 6th, which is the first Wednesday of November, at 4 o'clock, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I would love to do it again. I would love for you to give a little bit of homework to all the people on the line and see if the timing is right. They can come back next month and see how they did. I think that would be kind of cool.
The homework is simply 20 minutes and track your breath. There's not a right way to do it or a wrong way. Don't give yourself a hard time. 20 minutes and track your breath. Just one thing quick. Roxanne asked for an MBSR program in Boston. In Boston is the place where it started there at Mass General Hospital. So look them up, Mass General Hospital and MBSR. You're going to go back to where it all began, Garden of Eden at Mass General. All right,
and
everyone.
And before we wrap up, I just wanted to say then on November 16th, we are doing, Dr. Dan is doing a full-day workshop on mindfulness for caregivers specifically. It's in Philadelphia, and you can find out more about it. I just put it in the chat. It's christopherreeve.org/mindful with one L. christopherreeve.org/mindful. We still have a few spaces left for that. It's going to be very small. It's going to be less than 200 people. It's going to be a very good time. We're going to spend all day on that, and we're making it small so we can make it personal. So if you have a chance, if you're going to be in the Philadelphia area, it's a very low, I forget what we're charging, $15 or $20 or something, very low for a day's worth to spend with Dr. Dan. Thanks so much, Dan. That was great. Also, let me say at christopherreeve.org/Dr. Dan, we can continue the chat and leave some questions for him there, and he every week he comes in and answers those questions. Let me drop that in the chat too so you can see it. So thank you all. Thanks for everybody. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Rob. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.